my friend. Welcome back to another episode of Your Body Speaks. Of course, I'm Dr. Brook, your host, and I am so excited to share with you a new dear friend of mine, Kari Davis. She is the host of the Well podcast, and she's also the founder of the Well team. And she's a certified holistic life coach and essential oils educator. Kari is passionate about empowering women with the tools they need to reclaim their life through self care, health, and finding their identity, which is a huge thing, while embracing the idea of a natural and non toxic lifestyle in their products and mindset. You know, or you guys know, as my listeners, we talk about not just physical healing, but mental, spiritual, and emotional healing as well. So, this is going to be a great episode. Kari and her husband, Bobby, live in Naples, Florida. So we are on opposite ends of the United States with their combined 5 children. So, Kari, welcome to the show. So excited you're here with me.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be on. Very excited.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. So, I love to start these conversations just to get to know you a little bit more, the listeners to get to know you a little bit more. So, can you share with us your journey, how you went from who you were before to doing what you're doing now with the Well team and the education and the team of people that you have, and how you got into what you're doing?
Yeah, so I was an education major. I taught 5th grade for 1 year and then had my first baby in 2003 and was a stay-at-home mom for years and years, always working at the church, leading worship, doing different things. But I got introduced to essential oils in 2013. And a lot of what, when you were just on my podcast, a lot of what just blew me away was that God had this provision through plants and these gifts that He had given to the earth. And we had just been doing it in our own strength and really all wrong. And I was so excited to have antiviral solutions with little kids and just would not shut up about them. So kind of accidentally started an essential oil business and then had just kind of stepped into I'm really going to do this. And my husband, my kids' dad, passed away suddenly in 2015. It was a massive brain hemorrhage on a Saturday morning. And my world had just was completely upside down in like life, everyday life, but I was more grounded than ever in just wanting everyone to know not only God for salvation, for peace, for everything, but also just that He's so much better than we give Him credit for. And really threw myself into coaching and essential oils and leadership. And I I just can't really do anything else at this point. When he was alive, I didn't like to be on social media. I was like, why do you post all the time? And then here I have totally put myself out there as a recovering introvert. I just when you understand this, that when you feel that God has something for you to proclaim, it is so hard to stay quiet about it. And I just got over myself because who cares, right? Like, who cares? The message is more important than the delivery. So
I love what you said there in terms of the recovering introvert. I still feel like I'm an introvert. You know, some people don't believe it. They're like, you know, I'm leading groups at church and doing all these things, working with patients, and like you're doing, putting yourself out there, podcasting, social media, the whole life. It's like we're ambiverts, right? We can be extrovert, but we still have to recharge in our alone time, in our space, away from people, you
yeah.
know? And so I think that's beautiful. I want you, there was something you said there, and we're going to get into all the natural health and all the things you're doing. But I really kind of want to take this off a different angle here in the emotional and mental aspect, because we know that emotions get stored in the body. And if it doesn't get properly processed, so emotions are meant to be visitors. They're never meant to be residents.
Mhm.
A lot of times, I'm even gonna go out on a far limb here and say most of the time people allow their emotions to be resident in their body, in their life, in the way that they see things. It really transforms their entire identity. And I know you talk a lot about identity, but what was the whole grief process like in 2015 to wake up one day and have your husband and your children and all of that too? You mentioned your world being completely upside down. What was that process of walking through all of that? What did that look like? And how would you encourage other people if they're walking through really hard emotions, maybe not grief specifically, but other emotions like sadness or anger or resentment? Like, how would you encourage them? I know I'm giving you like a two-part question, but I'll let you
Yeah.
speak now.
Well, it's funny, you already answered it. You said, "How did you walk through it?" And I walked through it literally. I have burned probably 12 pairs of tennis shoes in 10 years. Just absolutely, like, moving my body and putting good things in my mind to push the negative out, to focus a lot on the truth. I call them affirming truths rather than affirmations. Your affirmations are very different, they're true affirmations. But I find that just like yours are, they have to be rooted in what is true. And I just really focused on heaven and that just that death is dead for those who believe, that it is not the final sentence. And I felt this like burden that like death isn't the worst thing, unbelief is, and betrayal is, and just and not having that peace. Now, not to say that there were just not sad days where grief is really messy and, kind of gross. You kind of try to torture yourself. I would try to imagine him like, in the room or and just say, I just didn't sign up for this. I don't want this. It wasn't that there wasn't some of that, but I really healed. It's hard to go to marriage counseling by yourself, but I had to reconcile some of the communication that we had just started to get so much better. I was so sad that like I had seen a glimpse of even what our marriage could be and then it was over. But just processing a lot of things, but really just that somatic. I would scream at the end of I'd go on this canal or on this walk, and there was this canal in Cape Coral, Florida, and there wasn't any close houses to me, and I would just stand and scream my brains out, just crying and screaming. And I think it just released. I had a somatic coach that was on the podcast once say, "Did you know that you were doing a somatic practice?" And I said, "No, I just had to get it out." I walked and cried and listened to so much worship music and podcasts. And I have to say, personal development too. I mean, just really guarding my children, guarding my time and my dreams. I really started to dream really early on. And I really think that that helped move me through kind of that idea of creating a life that I love was something that I was like, well, it's just me. I'm going to create this life. Set a list of non negotiables of what was ahead. I don't like the word manifested. I think that's a bunch of bull, but I did write a list of non negotiables for a next relationship, and God really delivered more than more than even I had asked in my husband's.
My gosh. Well, it's beautiful to hear while painful and ugly and messy and all of that,
Hmm.
the whole journey through that, it's beautiful to see and know you on the other side of it and know you in a beautiful relationship. And, like you were saying, your non-negotiables, writing down your list and all of that. I know that for people who've experienced any sort of really hard, and we've all encountered it in some sort of way, just in different
Oh, yeah.
things. It could be a loss of a relationship, right? Like a horrible
Mhm,
breakup or a loss of a child, God forbid, or all of these things. We've all experienced these really hard emotions. And I love that you were saying you had that somatic coach on your podcast and she's like, "Hey, did you even know you were doing this?" That was stuff that I would do when I was going through periods of grief in my life. You have to get these emotions out. They
mhm,
have to be visitors. They cannot be residents because these kinds of things do impact our body in a physical way too, and they impact our mind and they impact our spirit. They
mhm,
don't just impact us emotionally. They will have ripple effects. Like you were saying with your children, you could either stand up and work through this and go to that counseling and do what you did for you, yes, but ultimately for them too, in how they were going to continue their development process without their dad and all of the things. So I just have to commend you and honor you for that because it's not an easy journey, but the fact that you were anchored to your faith, anchored to like
mhm,
your belief, like anchored to like believing and knowing that regardless of the circumstances, God is still good
mhm,
and that what may have been intended for evil, God's gonna turn for good, which you're
mhm.
gonna see your husband again, and you have a beautiful life with Bobby, and you got bonus children as a result of it,
Yeah.
and Can you speak to that in terms of people going through these life changes and then coming to the other end of it, but then navigating step parenthood and understanding how to reclaim your self care while now you're adding more people into your mix, right? Because it's one thing when it's just the group of three, right? You and your two kids. And then
Mhm.
now you're adding more people into the mix. And it's like, well, how do we have self care when we're like taking care of all these people? Because a lot of us will die on the sacrifice of like, "Oh, well, we're just helping our parents, we're helping our brothers and sisters, I
Yeah.
can't take care of myself." And it's like, "No, you have to. It is a non-negotiable. You have to take care of yourself in order to take care of these other people." So, talk to
Yeah.
us about that.
Well, and a lot of it was I was kind of I was prideful. Like when I was a stay-at-home mom, I was the one watching other people's children. So I think a lot of that had to die, just my self-reliance and self-resilience when I had to ask for help. When it was no longer that I could just be the helper, that was way more comfortable for me. But when I had to truly lean on other people. And so that kind of part of me had already been humbled, I would say, by the time that I met Bobby 3 years later. And then I really stuck to that, like, beginning with the end in mind. No, I just knew, like, where I was going. I didn't know exactly how it was gonna get there, but, I do find myself a little high maintenance with my self-care. I mean, I feel like I require a lot of steps to the process. I am blessed to have a job that is flexible because I have to kinda do a lot, I would say. But I just wanted my kids to not see me anymore frazzled all the time and just always stressed and always needing the house to be perfectly clean, and extending that grace to myself has, I think, benefited the kids, especially with 5 of them now in the house. Now 2 are at college, but it's so important to look at what that takes. And back to the introvert, my husband's always like, "She's an introvert because watch after she goes to church and leads worship, like, I crash in the afternoon." I mean, I have had to make rest a part of my just everyday, or I just wouldn't make it.
So, on that note, when you're talking about that, having to have your restful state, especially after, big in the public eye, doing these type of extrovert activities that are a little bit harder for us introverts. I would love to hear some strategies. Like, yes, you rest, and you talked about being high maintenance with your self care. What are some things that you can teach the women who are listening to this podcast right now on ways to self soothe, healthy versions of self soothing that aren't super selfish, but they're really taking care of the heart of the matter and the mind of the matter and all of it?
Yeah. So, I have used essential oils medicinally for, um, 13 years, and so once you learn about your brain and just how when you smell something, it completely changes the way that your brain is processing those emotions. You might still have them, but and I won't get into all of the limbic system, but when we smell something, it's so powerful. So I have used that for so many years that I almost take it for granted now. Just essential oils that calm your nervous system and just breathing. So many of us need a tool to just sit and breathe deeply. I also think it's really important to journal and to be really writing down some of those toxic thoughts that are creeping in. Those ways that you're abusing yourself that you might not even realize that you would never talk to another person the way that you talk to yourself. Taking those thoughts captive, finding the truth in them, but also mostly the lies that you're going to find, and really rewriting them and then anchoring them with oftentimes an essential oil that is just helping your brain to rewire itself. And so it can sometimes be so quick. And again, I did this before I knew anything about it. I would use there's 2 oils, one is balance and one is serenity, and we would tease that it was like a liquid Xanax blend. And so right
I
after
love
TJ
that.
passed away, I would put both of the drops in my hands and I would rub them together and just stand and look
Yeah.
at myself in the mirror and be like, "You're going to go do this. You're going to take care of the kids. We're getting out of bed. We're taking them to school. We're going to make breakfast." Like I would like pep talk myself. And definitely movement. I mean, I think that walking, lifting, I did like bar workouts for a long time. I think that we're so much healthier when we get those endorphins going. Even if you don't want to, just put your shoes on, walk to the mailbox. You're probably going to want to walk a little bit further. And just what you put in your mind. Unfollow the people on social media. Give yourself a detox plan. Set your limits to your social media. You cannot put crap in your mind all the time and expect to be healthy. It's just not possible. So really guarding who you spend time with, what activities you give or do not give to other people. I said no to so many things. Like, I almost don't recognize myself anymore because I'm not so codependent. Like, I almost feel like I'm not
I love
doing it
that.
in some ways because I just always said yes to everything. And now I say no to almost everything.
Don't make that face. It's good that you're saying no to things.
Mhm.
And codependency, that could be a whole other topic of discussion, but I do want to go back to the limbic brain and the smell and emotions or feelings in our body and all the things that you just spoke about. Because as a doctor and working with patients, so many times I'm like, look, that limbic system, that amygdala, that cingulate gyri, that hippocampus. Now I'm getting deep into physiology right now and I won't go very, very deep in the weeds, but my listeners know Dr. Brooks always teaching and always talking about things. Those 3 aspects of that limbic brain are what sets on fire that sympathetic nervous system. That is what turns it on. That amygdala, very, very small almond-shaped, thing in your brain, very,
Mhm.
very intelligent thing in your brain, but it's very, very small. It acts like a lighthouse, and so it is constantly scanning the horizon, scanning the environment, scanning the thoughts that you have in your head. So your body your physiology does not know if there is a real threat, like, "Oh my gosh, there's a robber coming into the house and
Mhm.
he's got a knife," or if there's just bills due and you're standing in line at a coffee shop and you're thinking about all the things going on, right? All the overwhelm. That
Yeah.
limbic system gets triggered and it sets off that sympathetic nervous system. It makes your blood pressure rise. It makes you start to push blood to your arms and legs because your body, by design,
Mhm.
intelligently thinks that I need to run from this predator. And
Yeah.
so when you talk about the sense of smell and how you would, rub that on your hands and you were smelling that nature's Xanax and you were looking and you were speaking things into your mind, you were canceling out those toxic thoughts, the thoughts that would take you further
Mhm.
deeper into a dungeon, right, of just darkness, but you chose to step by step come
Mhm.
trudgingly through all the things and into the light, anchoring to that page. But that sense of smell does not go to your thalamus. So you have a portion in your brain also called the thalamus. Every single sense, the taste, the touch, the sound, the seeing, everything goes into the thalamus. Smell does not. It is why even merchandisers at the mall, you guys can tell me, I'm sure every single one of us has experienced this. You go to the mall, you go wherever you go, and it's like a recognizable scent. And you're just like, oh yeah, they have these scents piping through their pipes in the store to make you want to come in there to create an emotional experience around that. And so I too have patients at times. I'm like, you actually have to sniff this oil. This is not rubbing it on your like skin or putting it in a diffuser. Like sometimes they have to do, but I'm like, you take that bottle, you plug a nostril and you sniff it because you need to have that shift in neurology. And the support, that each individual oil carries. Kari, thank you for that. I know I got on like a little soapbox of teaching
No,
there,
I
but
love it.
it's
I love
important.
it.
I know.
Mhm.
So
Absolutely.
I know what you do in your personal life, that non-toxic living in your personal life, you do it with your family, your kids, your stepkids, all of that. What does non-toxic living in the mindset? And I know you touched on this briefly, but I want to go into it a little bit deeper on non-toxic living mindset wise. Like what does that look like? What does that mean to have a non-toxic mind?
Well, first of all, just everything that you let in, right? I don't believe that we were meant to carry the weight of every war across the world, to know every family member's step by step. Of course, we want to hear about family going through hard things, but we're not meant to be absorbing all of the energy from everything bad that has happened. We're not meant to have all of those dopamine effects firing nonstop with the TV and with your screen. So a lot of it is just like limiting, first of all, is just having that time like you were talking about of just silence, of just a breath. But then, like I mentioned, journaling and really journaling your thoughts. Cause I think a lot of us journal like what we did today or what we want our kids to find in our journal, but we don't really, really journal what we're ruminating about, what we're stressing about, what we're taking off of God's throne and putting on our own plate to deal with. And so we put it under the title of prayer requests or different things, but we don't always really dig deep into what we are fixated on. And a lot of the times it's not even truth. It's stuff like, I can't lose weight, the kids are so naughty, my husband doesn't look at me. It's stuff that is like, it might have some truth to it, but really getting to the heart of the matter about really what you're thinking and what view you're seeing things through is the most like beneficial to walk through with people and yourself. Once you learn how to self-coach, you can get rid of that toxic mindset really not easily, but it's simpler than you think because you just have to take those thoughts captive and really rewrite them into what God says. And that's why I don't like affirmations that are like, I am enough, I am beautiful. Your brain is going to go, no, you're really not actually. You have dirty dishes in the sink, you haven't done the laundry. Your brain is going to fight if it's about you. My dad is a pastor and he calls it like navel gazing. So much of our lives we spent like thinking about ourselves, but not in like a truthful way. Like we're just focused on ourselves. So when we lift our heads up and we see the truth of what God says about us, it's really hard to sit in a toxic mindset when you're reading the power of God's word about what he says about you. And that's actually who you are, is who created you. It's not what you're thinking that you are. And so even if you think you have a good self-esteem, even if you are healthy, if you do a job where you kind of punch the clock and you don't have to put yourself out there the way that we do as entrepreneurs, we have to like fake it till we make it a little bit. But even if you don't have to do all of those things, you're still saying things to yourself that are really nasty and you wouldn't say those to anyone else but yourself. And it's just sad.
So good. I know I'm oh, so good, but so weighted in truth, right? We do talk to ourselves in such a demeaning kind of way. I would never say things to you that I would say about myself. So journaling is huge. Everything you were saying, I was just like, amen, 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 like wanting to scream out, but I was like, let her talk. Don't like jump in. But journaling is so impactful when you're truthful as you're doing it. It's not about worrying if the kids are gonna see it. If it is something that you are worried if somebody's gonna see it, get it out, write it on the paper, like vomit it. I say these very strong words because I still journal. I used to journal a lot 'cause I didn't have an outlet for getting my big emotions out, and so I would be vomiting on paper, right, through
Mhm.
the words. And then you can burn it, you can, do whatever you need to do so you don't have to worry like, "Oh my gosh, somebody's gonna find it." But journaling is huge and super impactful. And then you talked about just, how being able to anchor ourselves in like what God sees about us and like being able to like move our eyes from looking down to like looking up, how important it is to really understand that what we believe about ourselves, we know all of our faults. We know every area where we went wrong. We know every area where we tripped and did all these things. But if we bring our eyes up, we can then go, I don't have to carry that shame. I don't have to carry that
Yeah.
condemnation. I don't have to like believe these things about myself. And so, how important it is to keep that positive mindset and really just know your body is going to respond. Some of the ladies who have struggled in their weight and dealing with these kind of things, like
Mhm.
not feeling good about themselves. I'm like, look, like you will never get the body that you dream of until you learn to love the body you have and you
Yeah.
build that deep relationship with it. And so it's so, so important. Moving into the next question, as you've walked this path of faith and wellness, two of my favorite things to actually bring together. Talk to Me Body Card Deck is a big, huge example of faith and wellness in action. But how has your body been a teacher to you? Like, how's that been?
So I I was raised by a mom who bought real food. My dad would want white bread and she would be like, "It's not even food." And so I just have always probably I've just been always kind of aware of what's real and fake. Is it made in a plant or is it a plant?
Yeah.
And just was just modeled that. And so I have never had any major physical ailments in my life, but absolutely in my mindset and in grief, it has been just really, really vital to take care of myself. I can tell when I'm, I also have I have a history of mental illness. After I had COVID, I had a lot of neurological things. My brain has a hard time detoxing through genetic testing. I learned that MSG and just certain toxins are really, really terrible for me. And so I have to be really mindful to just rest and to stop and to put good things in. And learning about the brilliance of nature, the brilliance of plants has just been really eye opening because when I first got introduced, I was like, I'm never really sick. My kids are really healthy. I'm not really going to ever really need any natural medicines. And I just had no idea how much, especially for the aromatherapy side and just for getting rid of toxins. I've always had terrible headaches when I smell synthetics. I can't smell a Yankee Candle. I can't walk by those stores at the mall. And so I've just always listened to my body in that way where it's like, I know I can't handle neurotoxins the way other people can.
Well, I would hope other people couldn't handle neurotoxins too. It's like I get very wild, let's just call it that, about the brain. And people are like, well, I know people don't think like this, but their attitudes or their actions kind of think like this. They'll drink themselves to an oblivion and cause liver damage and then go get a new liver or get a new set of lungs or let me get a new heart. I'll get a heart. You do not get a new brain. There's not a brain transplant surgery. Like that is off the table. It is not an option. We live
Yeah.
in an epidemic where not only mental illness in this DSM-5 type of mental illness, but like also with
Mhm.
neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's and dementia and all these
Yeah.
things that are happening. The brain is so important to preserve and to take care of. I mean, the whole body as a whole, everything works together. We can't just isolate one. But yes, like you're saying, you recognize your body or your brain can't handle those kind of things. So I love that.
Yeah.
Um, there's a final question I ask all of my guests on the show. What Before I get to that, is there anything that you wanna share, anything that I didn't ask, or that just something on your heart that you would wanna talk about before I ask that question?
Well, the only other thing when you were talking about how to get rid of those toxic thoughts is that if you're used to it, I say it's simple to self-coach sometimes, but sometimes our blocks and our pain is something that we really need to verbally process with another person, and that's why coaching is so effective. Whenever you trust someone to let them in, it is the biggest honor. It's also many times the biggest blessing. And so if when we're talking about this, you're feeling like, oh my gosh, I didn't know other people did that. I didn't know other people talk to themselves like that. You're not alone. But if you don't know how to get rid of some of those toxic thoughts, I would just be happy to book a coaching call and to get to know each other a little bit better because hearing it come out of our mouths sometimes, even journaling doesn't work for some people. They need to kind of talk it out. And coaching is not a woo woo word. It's not therapy, but it's much more free than therapy to where we can talk about God and we can talk about things that are whatever the person needs. And so I just thought I would throw that in there. Little plug for coaching because it's so vital.
Absolutely. No, it is absolutely vital. Coaching is a huge aspect, and I know you would take care of all of my people and all of my listeners so beautifully for those that do need the support. And I will also have your coaching link in the show notes for people to connect with you on Instagram and in your Facebook group. I do know that you have a freebie to offer people. Do you want to talk about that? The Whole You Plan, a holistic inventory and calm plan.
Okay, perfect. So this is sometimes in our holistic health, we're kind of like, I take my vitamins, I go for a walk. Like, what else do you want? So it breaks down your body, your mind, and your heart, kind of doing like an inventory, and not just for you, but for everyone in your family. Because sometimes you just have that feeling like something's not right with one of your kids, but you can't really put it onto paper. And so you can do it kind of for them, but also with them, depending on their age. And then it comes out with kind of a calming plan for each area of the body too. It's kind of it's just a good exercise to teach our kids, to teach our husbands to actually do that self inventory, to check in with ourselves. Because sometimes we think that we have a stomach ache. Your kid might be really nervous about something at school, like you always teach about. Your body is trying to talk to you, and so it helps you dig a little deeper into that.
Amen. I love that. That's beautiful. So, on that note about the body speaking and how it will signal to us, like, hey, I need some help here. There's some issues, right? Like it's waving a flag, surrender. On that note, the question I always ask my guests on the podcast is, in your experience, your personal experience, how have you experienced your body speaking to you? How have you seen it maybe in clients that you're working with? How would you say the body is speaking to you?
I can usually tell my body is speaking louder than usual when I am trying to push it past a point, that when I'm just like exhausted. I went through some time after trauma of just adrenal fatigue, just being exhausted all the time. Usually my body is telling me to slow down and I'm trying to tell it to speed up. And so I have really tried to listen to that more as I get older. I am ready to embrace my next maybe 10, 20 years from now, like my grandma years. I just can't wait to do puzzles and play with grandkids because I think that's going to be like my spirit decades. My body's
I love
always
that.
telling me to slow down.
You're like, "Finally, finally, I will slow down. I will give you exactly what you're asking for, but not right now." No, just
Dr.
kidding.
Brooke,
You
if I
are
tell
learning
it
to
that, will
listen,
it
and
listen to that? 15 more years and you get to slow down. Will it listen?
think so, because it trumps our what we want to do, right? And a lot of times we pay for it. And so I know I've brought this up multiple times, but in other episodes, but I talk about sneezing, for example, right? A lot of times we sneeze, God bless you, and we just walk and we move on. What
Mhm.
we failed to realize in that moment is that the body just notified us, hey, you're on alert. My immune system is kicking into gear. This is not the time to push yourself. This is the time to drink more water. This is the time to get the rest and avoid all sugar. Like cut the sugar from the diet because you
Yeah,
are taking your immune cells and blindfolding them and telling them, hey, fight the bad guy. Well, I can't see straight. So we're not going to do it really well. Right. So it's so funny you say that because it's, well, yeah, I mean, the body's going to trump like what you were saying, like where it's like you're going to try to push past it. It's going to be like, sorry, we're going to be flat on our back and we're going to be not feeling well because if I have to get the rest, I'm going to get it from somewhere.
exactly. I
So,
do
so
listen better than
beautiful.
I used to. I do.
Yeah, yes, yes. Well, it has been an absolute honor and so fun. I laughed a lot and my heart was bursting from my chest just talking with you and chatting. And I had so much fun on the show. I hope you, as the listener, had such a great time, that you got a good chuckle, that Kari had said some things that really made you think about your mental space, how you process things through your body, how you emotionally deal with things, how you are spiritually, how things are going, all 4 pillars of health, okay? It's not just the physical realm, and the physical realm can be impacted, like I said, to just reiterate, by the other 3. So, Kari, I just wanna thank you so much for your time. I will have all those show notes for you guys to be able to connect with her and get to know her like I have over these past couple weeks. So, thank you again, and have a beautiful rest of your day. We'll talk to you
Thank you.
soon.
Thank you so much for having me, and it was so much fun.
Yes, thank you.